You for calling the police on my sister after she and her family broke into my house? I, 28F, called the police on my sister, Samantha, 31F. Not because she was dangerous. Not because I wanted to punish her. But because for once in my life I chose myself over the chaos of my family. And now half my relatives won't speak to me, the other half think I've lost my mind, and I'm just sitting here wondering if doing the right thing can still somehow make you feel like the villain. I don't know the exact moment I realized I was the outsider in my own family. The black sheep, the burden, the one who didn't quite fit into the roles they'd already assigned. But I do remember how it felt. Like being the understudy in a play where the lead actress, my older sister Samantha, could do no wrong. No matter what she did, she was protected, celebrated, adored. Me, I was tolerated. From the time we were little, the difference in how we were treated wasn't just noticeable, it was constant. Samantha got the big birthday parties with clowns and pony rides. I got a store-bought cake in the kitchen. She had dance classes, gymnastics, horseback riding. I was told those things were too expensive right now. Samantha was described as spirited when she threw tantrums in public. I was overly emotional if I cried at home. She was creative when she slacked on homework. I was lazy if I didn't get straight A's. She once broke my arm by pushing me off the backyard slide when I was 6. My mom said I should have known better than to climb with her. No matter what happened, the script never changed. Samantha was the star. I was the extra. Always in the background. Always expected to understand, to accommodate, to be the bigger person. When I was 9, I got the flu and missed a week of school. I remember lying in bed, weak and shaking, and hearing my mom mutter, "Samantha never gets sick like this. She's so resilient." Like I was weak for having a fever. But here's the line that really stayed with me, the one I've carried like a weight my whole life. "You're the strong one. You don't need as much." They said it like a compliment. Every time Samantha had a meltdown or made a mistake, it was smoothed over with softness and patience. But me, I was expected to pick myself up and keep going. No room for mess. No room for weakness. No room for help. "You're the strong one" meant you don't get to complain. It meant we won't protect you. It meant you will carry your pain in silence because we're too busy tending to your sister's every discomfort. That phrase, "you're the strong one," was the rope they used to keep me in line. If I ever pushed back or asked for attention, I was being difficult. If I cried, I was manipulative. If I wanted fairness, I was selfish. It was emotional gaslighting wrapped in a bow. And the thing is, when you hear that enough times, you start to believe it. You start to think that maybe you really are the problem. That maybe asking for the bare minimum makes you demanding. That maybe you don't deserve the same care, the same softness, the same love. So I stopped asking. I started shrinking. I became the easy child, quiet, obedient, invisible. I studied hard. I cleaned up after myself. I stayed out of trouble. I disappeared so Samantha could shine. But the more I gave, the more they took. And not once, did anyone in my family stop and say, "Are you okay?" Because why would they? I was the strong one. By the time we reached our teens, the favoritism wasn't just subtle. It was structural. Samantha got a used car for her 16th birthday. I got a stern lecture about saving for what you want. She got braces, piano lessons, and a spring break trip to Miami. I got hand-me-down clothes and a warning not to develop expensive tastes. And anytime I pointed it out, I was being jealous, ungrateful, self-centered. So I stopped saying anything. I bottled it up and learned to smile through it. I became the person everyone vented to but no one asked about. I showed up, helped out, played the role of dutiful daughter and quiet sister. I was fine. You'd be shocked how long someone can live like that. Fine but hollow. Samantha, meanwhile, flunked out of college twice, got into a string of toxic relationships, and eventually got pregnant at 21 with a guy named Kevin. A man who was charming, jobless, and completely uninterested in fatherhood. She moved back home. My parents cleaned out the guest room, turned it into a nursery, and supported her like she was returning royalty. They watched the baby while she figured herself out. They paid for groceries, diapers, even her car insurance. I was in college too. Working part-time, going to class full-time, scraping by on scholarship aid and cafeteria leftovers. One day I asked my mom, genuinely curious, "How come you never helped me like this?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Samantha has a baby now. She needs help." That was it. The invisible stamp on my forehead again. She doesn't need as much. She's the strong one. She'll be fine. That was the moment something in me hardened. Not because I was jealous, but because I realized no one would ever come through for me the way they did for Samantha, no matter how hard I fell. I could be drowning and they'd throw a towel to dry myself off. Meanwhile, Samantha got a life raft for getting her feet wet. So I planned my quiet escape. By 24 I was done. Done waiting for them to notice my pain. Done playing second daughter to Samantha's lifelong drama. Done hoping the scales would ever balance. So I did what I always do. I planned, I worked, and I kept my head down. I landed a decent job straight out of college. Not my dream role, but it paid well and had benefits. I lived frugally, skipped vacations, saved every bonus and tax refund I got. I told people I was being responsible. In reality, I was preparing for freedom, my escape hatch. I stopped going home for holidays. Made excuses when Samantha's kids had birthdays. Avoided the group chat unless it was an emergency. I became that distant relative everyone whispers about but no one really knows anymore. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't bitter. I was tired. Tired of being guilt-tripped, used, manipulated, and left out. Tired of being invited only when they needed something from me. Over time I built a new life. Quietly. Carefully. I found a couple close friends I could actually trust. I started therapy. Learned to stop apologizing for existing. I stopped asking why my parents didn't love me the way I needed, and started building the life I deserved, with or without them in it. And after 6 years of hard work, I did something no one in my family thought I could do. I bought a house. Not just any house. A cozy 2-bedroom cottage just outside of Asheville. Big enough for a home office and a guest room, or maybe a dog. A little porch. A garden. Quiet neighbors. Surrounded by trees. I signed the paperwork, picked up the keys, and just sat in my car for 20 minutes staring at the front door. Not crying. Not panicking. Just stunned. It was the first thing in my life that no one could take from me. Something that wasn't borrowed, shared, or secretly expected to be for the family. This was mine. I made one post on Instagram. Just one. A picture of me on the front porch with my keys captioned, "All mine. Every square foot earned." The post barely got any likes, but my mom saw it. She didn't comment. She didn't even like it. She just texted, "You bought a house." Without telling us. No congratulations. No, "I'm proud of you." Just offended entitlement. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be a quiet victory. If you've never grown up in a toxic family system, you might assume news like, "I bought a house," would be met with pride, congratulations, maybe even a little amazement. But in my family, the reaction wasn't admiration. It was entitlement. It started slowly, as it always does. A day after the post, my sister Samantha texted, "So exciting. You'll have to send pics of the bedrooms. I bet the kids are gonna love their new space." I stared at the message, confused. "What kids? Whose space?" I replied, "It's just me, Sam. I bought the place for myself." She sent back, "Well, yeah, for now. But that second room's basically empty, right? And you're always saying you miss the kids." I hadn't said that in years. Later that day, my mom chimed in. "You know, this could be such a blessing for your sister's family. That house is big for one person. Big for me, the person who worked 60-hour weeks to afford it. The person who ate beans and rice for 3 years to save up a down payment. The person they ignored, dismissed, and left out for decades. But now that I had something valuable, suddenly I was important again." Over the next few weeks, the pressure ramped up. Samantha began sending links to bunk beds, kids' curtains, toy storage ideas. My mother started forwarding listings for bigger homes, near Samantha, with notes like, "You should think long-term. This place is just your starter." The underlying message was clear. This home isn't for you. It's for them. At first I tried to be polite. I reminded them it was a 2-bedroom, one of which was already my office. I said I'd bought it specifically for my own needs. I told them I was happy to have them visit occasionally, but I didn't want roommates. Definitely not 5 of them. My mom called and said, "You're being selfish. Think about the children." Samantha called me cold. Kevin, her husband, texted me directly for the first time in 2 years. "Family takes care of each other. This ain't it, Chief." And then it got worse. They showed up. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. I'd spent the morning working in the yard, finally putting in the herb garden I'd been dreaming about. The sun was out, birds were chirping, and for the first time in weeks I felt peaceful. No work emails. No texts from my mother. No guilt sitting on my chest. Until I went inside and found a van in my driveway. At first I didn't think much of it. Maybe a neighbor had guests. But the moment I saw Samantha's kids jumping around my front porch, my stomach dropped. There she was, Samantha, standing in my open doorway, holding a roll of garbage bags and smiling like she'd just won a game show. "Surprise," she said, like this was a baby shower or something. Behind her was Kevin, holding a cooler. Behind him were 3 duffel bags and a stroller. Her youngest had already kicked off his shoes on the carpet. One of the kids was asking which room was theirs. I froze. "What are you doing?" I asked. Samantha laughed like I just asked why the sky was blue. "We figured you wouldn't mind if we came a little early. Mom said she talked to you." Well, she hadn't. They moved around me like I wasn't there. Kevin opened the fridge. One of the kids started unzipping couch cushions. Samantha walked down the hall and yelled back, "Oh my God, this room is perfect." My voice caught in my throat. "You need to leave," I said finally. Samantha blinked like I'd spoken in a foreign language. What? Don't be dramatic. We're family. Kevin came back from the kitchen. You've got space. What's the big deal? The big deal was that they weren't visiting. They were moving in. I asked how they got in. Samantha smiled sweetly and said, Mom gave us her copy of the key. I hadn't even remembered giving my mom one. Probably when the home inspection happened. Probably months ago. But that didn't matter now. I told them again, louder this time, that they had to leave. That this wasn't okay. That this wasn't their home. Kevin rolled his eyes. You're overreacting. We'll be out of the way. It's just until we get on our feet. No, I said. I never agreed to this. That's when Samantha snapped. You're unbelievable. All that talk about being independent, and you can't even help your own sister for a few months. I have helped you. For years, I said. And I'm done. You bought this house to be selfish. That's what this is. You just want to shove your success in our faces. I bought this house to have peace, I said. And you've never respected that. He started crying. Not out of hurt, out of anger. Her face twisted like she couldn't believe I wasn't caving. Kevin stood up straighter, his voice got louder. You really gonna throw your own blood out into the street? I walked into the kitchen, picked up my phone and told them calmly. You have 10 minutes to get out or I'm calling the police. They didn't move. Samantha stared at me stunned. Like she genuinely didn't believe I'd go through with it. So I did. I don't remember much about the 911 call itself. My hands were shaking. My voice was oddly calm, too calm. Like I'd left my body and was watching someone else report their sister for trespassing. The dispatcher asked if they were armed. I said no. She asked if they were still inside. I said yes. She asked if they were refusing to leave. I said absolutely. She said officers were on the way. That's when Kevin snapped. He got in my face, not yelling, whispering. Quiet, cold rage. You don't call the cops on family. You think they're gonna side with you just because you own a house? They'll laugh at you. You're gonna regret this. I didn't say anything. I just stood my ground. I've never been so scared and so sure of something at the same time in my life. Samantha started crying again, the performative kind. She sat on my staircase, cradling one of the kids, saying things like, We have nowhere else to go. She's throwing children out into the cold. I just wanted my sister back. It was 72 degrees outside. The kids were sitting comfortably playing with the dog. This wasn't a crisis. This was a staged show. The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers. 1 male, 1 female. They were professional, calm, respectful. I explained everything. They're not tenants. They don't live here. They entered using a stolen spare key and I've asked them repeatedly to leave. Kevin tried his whole charm act. Shaking hands, making jokes. Samantha leaned into her concerned mother routine, acting confused, wounded, like I was the one causing a scene. But the officers were having none of it. The moment I showed them the deed, the key logs, and explained the history, they turned serious. Ma'am, the female officer said to Samantha, you're being officially warned to leave this property. If you return without consent, the homeowner has every right to pursue legal action. They were escorted out. Kevin cursed under his breath the whole way. Samantha cried and kept looking back at me like I was betraying her somehow. The kids were confused but calm. I felt horrible, not for them but for me. For the decades of conditioning that made me feel like I was doing something wrong. After they left, I locked the doors, closed the blinds, and collapsed onto the floor. I didn't cry. I just shut down. That night I didn't sleep. But I knew something had changed. A line had been drawn. And there was no going back. The silence lasted maybe 12 hours. Just long enough for me to think, maybe, they'd realize how far they crossed the line. That the shock of police involvement would force some reflection. But the next morning, I woke up to war. Facebook was flooded. Not just Samantha, but my mother, aunts, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. All with the same tone, sad, wounded, performative outrage. My sister posted a long paragraph with a picture of her kids. Sometimes the people you think love you the most turn out to be the cruelest. I never imagined calling the police on a mother and her children could ever be seen as reasonable, especially by your own sister. But I guess money really does change people. We're heartbroken. Please pray for us. Underneath were dozens of comments. You deserve better, Sam. That girl's always been cold. What kind of monster calls the cops on family? Then came my mother's post. A blurry photo of me and Samantha as kids holding hands. Caption: I don't know what happened to my youngest. I raised her better than this. Got over 400 likes. Dozens of people I grew up with, neighbors, old teachers, church acquaintances, all sharing, commenting, shaking their heads at the girl they thought they knew. And no one reached out to me. No one asked what really happened. They just decided I was the villain now. My voicemail filled up within hours. You could have just talked to her. She's your sister. You're clearly having a breakdown. What about the children? My cousin Megan sent me a voice memo that I still haven't deleted, because it was so perfectly unhinged. You've always acted like you're better than the rest of us. Just admit it. You bought that house to rub it in everyone's face. You wanted her to beg. And now that she did, you humiliated her. That's not strength. That's cruelty. And it didn't stop online. 3 days later, Samantha showed up at my job. I work at a mid-sized finance firm. I'd just gotten out of a meeting when the receptionist told me a family member was in the lobby. I walked out and there she was, holding her baby, looking tearful, surrounded by shopping bags, making a scene. I just need to talk to you, she said. Please, I can't do this anymore. I need your help. It was a performance. A public ambush designed to make me break in front of my coworkers. I calmly asked security to escort her out. Later that night, I got an email from my boss. We received a complaint about a disruptive visitor. If there's something happening in your personal life that may affect your availability, let's discuss it. That's when I knew this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was harassment. I was done. Done being the family doormat. Done explaining myself. Done letting guilt override my basic human right to feel safe in my own home. The day after the incident at work, I met with a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A no-nonsense, zero BS woman named Carla, who looked at me across the table and said, "They're not going to stop until you make them stop." She wasn't wrong. By that point, Samantha had created a narrative so strong, so emotionally manipulative, that entire branches of my family tree had decided I was mentally unstable, or cruel, or both. They didn't care about the facts. That she'd broken into my home without permission. That she'd brought her kids. That she'd refused to leave. That I had no history of violence, instability, or even a raised voice. They only saw what they wanted, the girl who finally said no. And when you've spent your entire life saying yes, the first no sounds like betrayal. Carla helped me take several steps. A cease and desist letter to Samantha and Kevin, outlining their trespassing, harassment, social media defamation, and attempts to interfere with my employment. A formal trespass order filed with the local police, meaning if they returned to my property uninvited, it would lead to arrest, no more warnings. A restraining order, which we successfully filed and obtained based on the break-in, workplace ambush, and online harassment. It covered physical proximity and digital contact. A cease and desist to my mother, for giving them a key to my house without permission and participating in the smear campaign. It hurt to send, but it was necessary. Documentation of everything. Screenshots. Voicemails. Emails. Witness statements. Even a letter from my therapist describing the emotional toll. Once the papers were served, the tone of everything changed. The phone calls stopped. The social media posts were deleted. The flying monkeys, those extended relatives who had messaged me guilt-ridden essays, started backtracking. One cousin messaged me, "I didn't know it was that serious. Samantha made it sound like you were just being cold." Yeah. Funny how the story changes when the law gets involved. I lost a lot in those few months. I lost people I used to consider family. I lost the illusion that being good meant being treated well. I lost the image of myself as the quiet, helpful, agreeable little sister. But I gained more than I lost. I gained my privacy. I gained my voice. I gained the freedom to walk into my home without wondering who might be inside it. It's strange. You'd think choosing peace would feel peaceful. But for a while it felt like grief. Because part of me, the inner child, the girl who used to wonder what it would take for my family to see me, still hoped things could be different. But now I know, they didn't want me strong. They wanted me silent.